1,
2,
3,
4.
Monster movie.
Fun time, go! Monster movie.
Fun time, go. Monster.
Movie.
Fun time.
Go!
Monster movie. Fun time, go.
With Precious D and Honeybee.
Fun time, go!
When you need mealtime inspiration, it's worth shopping Kroger, where you'll find over 30,000 mouth-watering choices that excite your inner foodie. And no matter what tasty choice you make, you'll enjoy our everyday low prices, plus extra ways to save, like digital coupons worth over $600 each week. You can also save up to $1 off per gallon at the pump with fuel points. More savings and more inspiring flavors make shopping Kroger worth it every time. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Fuel restrictions apply.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, friends and neighbors, welcome to Monster Movie Fun Time Go. 31 Days of Horror. Oops, All Werewolves edition. Joining me once again and returning to the show is my good friend Caleb Mendez. Welcome back, Caleb.
Hey, thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Caleb, you put out a book recently. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that before we get into the movie?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I put out a book at the beginning of this year. It's called Outside of Eden. It's just a personal poetry book. The little bit about my life coded in some Gnostic religious terms and things like that. I just found the similarities to be really interesting and fun, and also not make it about specific things that are too close to home while still getting the point across. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. I'm working on something else right now. I'm not sure where it's going, but it's going.
Okay. And where can the folks find that? Is that on Amazon?
Yeah, so you can find it on Amazon. Just look up Outside of Eden. You can also find it on my website, and it will take you to Amazon. And that website is calebmendesart.com.
Okay, and we'll put a link to that in the show notes. And there will be a guest profile on our website at mmftg.com. Okay, today we are going to be talking about An American Werewolf in London from 1981. This movie is a bit of a classic. It got a Saturn Award for Best Horror Film and the first ever Academy Award for Best Makeup. The title is kind of a mashup between An American in Paris and Werewolf of London. Let's see. Directed by John Landis. It's 97 minutes in color. The budget was $5.8 million. Box office, $62 million. So I think that counts as a hit.
I agree.
The cast is David Naughton as David Kessler. David Naughton, famous for his Dr. Pepper commercials. He was the pepper. I'm a pepper. You're a pepper. He was the pepper. Jenny Agutter as Nurse Alex Price, Griffin Dunn as Jack Goodman, John Woodvine as Dr. J.S. Hirsch, Don McKillop as Inspector Villers, Frank fucking Oz as Mr. Collins, Paul Kember as Sergeant McManus, Sidney Bromley as Alf, Frank Singunau as Ted, Will Layton as Joseph, Jeffrey Burridge as Harry Berman, Brenda Cavendish as Judith Brown, Michael Carter as Gerald Bringsley, Anne-Marie Davies as Nurse Susan Gallagher. And those are all the main players. There's a few more, but I think that's enough. So, Caleb, had you seen this movie before? I think you said people told you you needed to see it.
Yeah, I had a lot of friends tell me that I needed to see this because it is a classic, and I had not seen it until, before we started recording this. So, yeah, it's my first time watching it.
And what did you think? Were your friends right? Did you need to see it?
They were indeed right, and I did need to see this. I thought that this movie was fantastic.
It is. This is a typical Type 1 werewolf story. Folks, if you've been listening You may have heard me break this down before, but I'm going to do it again. These are my categorizations that I've come up with from watching all these movies in a month. Not every werewolf movie falls into one of these categories, but most of them do. Type 1 is somebody gets bit by a werewolf, has to deal with that, and usually ends up dead at the end. Not always, but usually. Type 2 is there's a werewolf among us. We got to figure out who it is. Some movies combine those two things. Type 3 is the secret lives of werewolves. There's a whole werewolf society, and we learn all of its stupid rules and customs and stuff. And again, that can be combined with the other types of movies.
Stupid rules. I like
So
it.
yeah, it's a pretty basic, straightforward Type 1 story. A couple of Americans are backpacking through Europe and are in Scotland. No,
yeah.
they're just in the...
England.
Are they in Scotland? Because they end up in London.
Yeah, they're somewhere in England, I think.
Yeah.
Just kind of.
I think it's because they said the
backwoods.
moors. Yeah, they're out in the moors in England. And the locals clearly know that there's a werewolf problem, but they get mad at them and kick them out into the night.
Yeah, I thought that was really funny. Just right at the get-go, they're trying to hang out at a bar, and they see a pentagram or whatever it is on the wall, and everyone gets mad at them for not knowing that there are werewolves. And they're like, you know what? You go out there. You go where the werewolves
How
are.
dare you? How dare you ask questions?
Yeah, I love it. I just thought
There's
it was
one woman
goofy.
who's like, you can't send them out there. They do feel guilty and go out looking for them, but they're too late. One of them gets
Eventually.
killed. One of them gets killed, and the other one gets infected, taken to the hospital in London, where he meets a cute nurse and immediately starts a relationship with her.
Yeah, I thought that was, a bit odd, but I mean, I'm not gonna, I'm not going to really criticize movie logic too bad for a goofy werewolf film.
They're working on movie time, so any romantic possibilities are always accelerated when you're on movie time.
Exactly. But yeah, I definitely thought the beginning was just enough to get me really interested and kind of understand the tone of the movie going forward. I mean, you had that comedy. It seemed like it was just making fun of everyone, both the British and Americans. And then obviously some serious tone, and then a lot of gore. This movie was I didn't expect it to be as bloody going into it, but it was quite a bloody film, and it was great. I mean, all practical effects. It was truly fun.
Speaking of the effects, yes, they're practical. This movie, I think, what it's best known for is its transformation.
Yeah, that
really,
transformation.
It really steps things up from the just sort of cross-fading and adding hair to somebody's face. As I mentioned earlier, they did get an Academy Award for it, and I think it's probably the first movie to do this kind of transformation, this full body. The guy's not just growing hair, but his limbs are getting longer, and he's kind of breaking out of his... He doesn't exactly tear out of his skin. There are some where they just tear their skin off and there's a werewolf underneath. But it's a very painful process because the shape of his bones is changing and his skin is stretching out.
Yeah.
As he's turning into something larger.
Yeah, that transformation, I mean, everything about it, you could just see how violent and painful of a transformation it was. And because it was all practical, it just made it that much more fun just to see. And you really felt like you were watching a man go through the pains of turning into a monster.
Yeah. And there's 3 basic types of werewolf as well. One is you're just a wolf. You look like a wolf. They just get a wolf or a wolf-looking dog, and they just film it. 2 is you're a really big wolf. And 3 is you're a wolf man of some kind. A bipedal, clearly not a wolf and clearly not a man. So he turns into a really big wolf in type 2. He's like alligator size.
Yeah. Yeah, he's
and
quite
big
scary
big
looking.
alligator size.
Yes.
Yeah. So, there's an element in this film that we haven't seen before, which is he's haunted by ghosts. So there's ghosts and werewolves.
I really thought that the sort of lore that this movie built was interesting with the ghosts.
Yeah.
I thought that was just kind of a fun twist of an unnatural death causes them to keep wandering the earth and haunt this, I guess, wolf bloodline?
The people that he killed, well, his best friend's haunting him, and his best friend's telling him he needs to kill himself.
Yeah.
Which is true. He's correct.
Yes.
Sadly, he is correct. But he's also being haunted by the people that he has killed, and they can't rest until he dies. But it seems to me, and I don't know if they had really addressed this, if he dies, his friend's not going to be at rest. His friend can't be at rest until the wolf that killed him dies. And I think that wolf is still running around, isn't it?
No. So the beginning of the movie...
Or did the villagers kill it?
Yeah, the villagers killed that man, but because the curse got passed on, the wolf bloodline continued going.
So he's got to be haunted until the whole bloodline comes to an end.
Exactly.
Well, we will. So this is not with any way John Landis's approval, but we will discover in the sequel, some 16 years later, that the bloodline has not come to an end. So those guys should all still be running around.
Perhaps,
haunting,
or maybe it's just
somebody.
Another group of lycanthrope out there. Maybe there are just a whole bunch of other werewolves. Which, when we get to that, I've got a lot to say about that. But
okay, yeah, but no, there is an implied. It's not explicitly stated, but there is an implied connection, direct connection to this movie.
Yes,
beyond just the similar title. So he, at some point, figures out that he is in fact a werewolf. He wakes up in the zoo. He becomes a balloon thief to cover his nakedness. The doctor at some point becomes convinced. He goes out to investigate the initial incident and becomes convinced somehow that he is a werewolf, or at least thinks he's a werewolf.
Mm-hmm.
He goes home from the hospital with the nurse. So they hook up and shack up right away. But he changes while she's out. Wakes up in the zoo, in the wolf cage, which he's broken into. I also wanted to mention, this is a John Landis film, so we get a See You Next Wednesday. That is his little thing that he hides in all his films. Somebody will say the line "See you next Wednesday," or it will appear in text or something. And in this film, the "See You Next Wednesday" is the name of a pornographic film showing at a theater. Ladies and gentlemen, you used to have to go to a movie theater or own a projector to watch pornography.
You know,
you could not just get it on your phone.
That was such a weird moment seeing that in a movie, because I sat there and I just went, yeah, I really just want to go in public into a movie theater and watch something like that.
It was your only option.
What a bad option.
Unless you had some 8mm you'd ordered through the mail or something and your own projector. But as common as DVD players are today, movie projectors were not quite as common back in the day. Though you could check one out from the library. we used to do that for my birthday a couple of years. I'd have a slumber party and you could check out a projector and like 3 movies.
Oh, what a fun time.
Yeah. So I remember one year we had like Phantom of the Opera and then a couple of sort of comedy short films. Probably one of them was Hardware Wars. So, but it was a whole big thing. It was a whole big thing.
No, it sounds like a big deal.
But this was the kind of projector you used to have at school, that kind of thing.
Yeah, gotcha.
Which they didn't have by the time you were in school.
No.
Anyway, the name of the pornographic movie is See You Next Wednesday. And it seems to be something that they have filmed for this movie because they made it kind of comical.
Yeah, at one point, the 2 lead actors are kind of getting into it, and a guy just walks into the scene, and they just go, "Who are you?" And he's like, wrong place. Sorry. And then just leaves.
Yeah, no, he comes and he's like, hey, how could you promised me you never do this again. And a guy breaks in and says, you promised me you never do this again. And the male actor says, I never promised you anything. And he says, not you, her. And she says, I've never seen you before in my life, or something like that. And he's like, oh, bye.
Yeah.
And just leaves. But yeah, there's another scene where I don't remember exactly what it is, but she answers the phone in a kind of odd fashion.
Yeah, it's definitely just silly.
The phone rings and she answers it, and it's like a wrong number or something. Which,
Yeah.
like, why would you bother to put that in a porno? You know, it's not something that just happens. You scripted that and put it in there, that you interrupted what was going on for a wrong number.
Yeah. Oh man.
So it's pretty weird.
But you know,
But he goes
about-
in there.
I think that we might be going to the
Go
same
ahead.
place about that scene. You know, he goes in there to kind of get away from turning into a werewolf.
Yeah.
Oh, no, he goes in there because he sees the ghost of his friend and kind of lures him in, and
Yeah.
they sit down and have
Yeah.
a conversation. And that animatronic that they did for his buddy Jack, I believe is his name,
Yes.
fantastic, absolutely fantastic. I mean, I think all of the special effects were done by Rick Baker, I believe, and
Uh-huh.
man, every little practical effect in this movie was just fantastic. The that animatronic specifically, with the hanging flesh and everything, it really made me uncomfortable. So I was like, oh, I could see everything happening with this guy right now. That is wildly uncomfortable, but it's also really funny because we're having a very serious conversation about, hey, you need to kill yourself because you're a terrible monster, and then in the background is this oddly comedic pornographic film that does not fit the tone of the conversation.
Let me look up Rick Baker, because I ran across his name in one of the other movies that I haven't recorded yet.
This
But I
guy
think
does
they had
a lot of practical effects for, from what I've seen, a lot of werewolf movies.
Yes. Yeah, so I think they got him to do Cursed, and then for some reason the producer didn't like what he was doing.
Okay.
But he's still listed in like the opening credits.
Interesting.
Yeah. So they kind of, I think they maybe used part of his stuff and then changed it to some CGI shit. But
Ugh.
you can still see some of it.
Yeah.
So anyway, we'll get to that though when we record that movie.
Yep.
Yes, he did American Werewolf in London, and he did the Werecat in Thriller, Michael Jackson's Thriller.
All right.
So there you go.
Yeah, everything about this movie was just great. I thought the pacing was fun too. It was very fast paced, but I mean they're working on movie time, so it had to be, you know, pretty fast paced. The cinematography was really fun too. Like, I really love the sort of shots in the woods where it's like a point of view where you are the monster running through the woods. And I mean, Sam Raimi did it in The Evil Dead, and I guess it's become pretty common now. I love stuff like that. And then I think the thing that really, my favorite shot of the film, the thing that really took me away, was in the subway when he's chasing that guy through the subway, and the man's on the escalator, and it's this bird's eye view. You see the man on the escalator, and just out of shot, you see the werewolf slowly coming in, and then it hard cuts at him waking up in the zoo. Man, I just thought that suspense was so cool.
Yeah.
Really made me kind of scared of the werewolf. I'm like, oh wow, this thing is daunting, because you see the transformation, but you didn't really see the monster until that point, you know, in full. It's just kind of like, oh, a mouth here or there, because it's a big, you know, animatronic thing. Yeah, I just thought that what they did with what little they could do was fantastic.
Where did you watch this? I'm trying to see where it's streaming. I thought it was on Peacock.
So,
Or is that
my good friend Joey had this movie on 4K, and he brought it over, and we watched it.
Okay. All right. So, yeah, folks, I think you're going to have to... I think American Werewolf in Paris is on Peacock, but American Werewolf in London, you're going to have to stream it. Rent it or buy it. I already own it. But, maybe it might be on Shudder. It might not. I'm not sure.
Well, even if
YouTube
you have to own it.
It's on Shudder, but there's a couple things I tried. There's a couple things I tried to watch on Shudder, and it told me it wasn't available in your country.
Oh, yeah, this movie's definitely worth owning or renting, in my opinion.
So, here's the part where we give it a rating. What are you going to rate it? We're using a full moon scale, a moon phase scale.
All right. See, I was wondering if we were still doing pumpkins or not.
Yeah, no, this year we're doing moon. So it's new moon, half moon. It's a new, quarter, half, 3/4, or full.
Wow. Okay, cool. All right. So my rating of this film, I'm giving this movie a full moon. I think that it was great. It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed the tone on the serious and the comedic parts. It added some lore to werewolves. I'm not too knowledgeable on werewolf lore, so this was definitely something that I thought was really fun. Just to sort of, get me into it. And overall, I enjoyed it. Yeah, so this is a full moon for me.
I agree. I also give it a full moon. Highly recommended.
Awesome.
If it's definitely worth renting or buying. I own it, of course. The sequel, which we will be discussing, Caleb will come back to talk about it tomorrow, because I told him his punishment for picking the good movie that everybody wants to watch is he had to also watch the bad movie that nobody wants to watch.
So I definitely didn't think it would be. I didn't think it would be a punishment, but you'll hear about it tomorrow.
Yeah. Yes. So, thank you for joining me, Caleb, and thank you for joining us, listeners out there. Please like and subscribe and rate and review and all of that stuff. And you can find links to all that stuff at mmftg.com. And you can follow us, support us on Patreon at patreon.com/mmftg, where you will hear patron exclusive episodes as well as occasional early releases when I can get them edited ahead of time, and ad-free episodes. Until next time, I have been your host, Precious D. Remember to keep calm and take shelter in basements. Please do not misuse science. And we won't see you next Wednesday, but you will hear us on Monster Movie Fun Time Go. You've been listening to Monster Movie Fun Time Go. If you enjoyed the show, please rate and review us on your podcasting platform of choice. Our theme song is by the Texicano Folk Rock Punk featuring Lita Lopez. You can support the show, find links to our social media, and even leave us a voice message at anchor.fm/mmftg.